More on breaking developments in the Trayvon Martin case. NBC News is now reporting that criminal charges will be filed against George Zimmerman. Of course, State Attorney Angela Corey may have to find Zimmerman if she decides to charge him. In a bizarre 24 hours leading up to this point, Zimmerman's lawyers shocked everyone Tuesday, saying they'd lost contact with him and for that reason were no longer representing him. In fact, there's only one man who's been defending Zimmerman, who's spoken with Zimmerman, since his lawyers last did.
So he's in hiding, and I actually spoke to him today. I'm not on the record, so I won't talk about the nature of the conversation.
Yes, George Zimmerman seems to have Sean Hannity on speed dial. Of course, that was Monday. 24 hours later, once the lawyers found out about Zimmerman's back-channel communiques and announced they could no longer represent him as a result, Hannity hedged his scoop.
Now, one of the reasons that was cited during the press conference was an alleged conversation that George Zimmerman had with me.
So now it's an alleged conversation. Joining us now is the columnist for The Hill, MSNBC political analyst Karen Finney, former communications director for the DNC. In Sanford, Florida, Joyanne Reed, managing editor of thegrio.com. And an MSNBC. And here in New York, Jamie Floyd, an attorney and managing editor of the Global Game World Report. Karen, the other developments of the last 24 hours is that George Zimmerman is MIA. I'm sure you've had problem clients yourself. How much damage is Zimmerman doing to his case by calling someone like Sean Hannity and even calling the special prosecutor, the lawyers say, setting up his own website as well?
Yeah, I think we don't yet know, and we won't yet know until he is in custody and they have a chance to question him and kind of get a sense of his mental state. You know, one of the things that has struck me, Martin, as this case has continued to unfold, clearly we have a situation here where Martin doesn't trust the lawyers, right? So he's not trusting their advice.
You mean Zimmerman?
Zimmerman, sorry.
Of course.
I apologize.
Not at all.
But that Zimmerman, you know, he clearly doesn't trust these lawyers. He's not even contacting them. So that, and obviously that brings into question what is his mental state, and as you say, he's out there missing in action. Whatever it is the police thought that they might be doing at the beginning of all of this, thinking that they could just make this all go away, they've really made it worse, both for the Martin family, for Trayvon Martin, and for George Zimmerman, because this is really a pretty unusual situation to have, you know, you've got this guy out there calling TV reporters but not his own lawyers. That just doesn't sound right.
And Joyanne, to Karen's pertinent point, Zimmerman's defenders have repeatedly said in public they don't wish this to be tried in public, and yet there he is ringing up a very well-known anchor on Fox News and then himself ringing up the special prosecutor, and of course his own lawyers until yesterday evening were available to any media outlet that wished to have them.
Well, that's absolutely right, Martin. And what's been interesting, as you said, you've had the family of George Zimmerman, his father and his brother. Yeah, they're talking to lots of people. If you notice, they're talking a lot more to Fox and Fox affiliates. They seem to be presenting a very public case that is very much about Reverend Sharpton, very much about their claims that unnamed people are calling George Zimmerman a racist. They've waged a campaign that was really tailor-made in a lot of ways for a Fox News audience. So it's not surprising that if they were going to reach out to anyone, it would be someone from Fox News. But the point here, I think, as you're making, is that has sort of muddied the waters in a sense, because it's put a narrative out there that is all hearsay. It's all come from his family. The only time we've heard from George Zimmerman is this website that he created, again, without his lawyer's knowledge or assistance, where he speaks for himself, but really only does a lot of quotes about sort of righteousness and such. So we don't really know who he's talking to and who's advising him now. And
Joyanne, I remember his brother's interview on CNN where his brother went on and actually said that despite the police surveillance tape, he had actually had a broken nose, his head had been slammed into the pavement. I mean, the guy was categoric about the fact that Trayvon Martin had performed a savage beating, and yet when you and I saw that surveillance tape, well, we were staggered. Where were the injuries?
Right, and they've even given quotes. I mean, as this story has escalated, really coming 100% from the Zimmerman side, we've even had things supposedly Trayvon Martin said, and these were all related to us only via hearsay by, you know, the family. But I have to tell you, Martin, yesterday at this press conference, Hal Urich, I had a chance to ask a couple of questions and asked Hal Urich why they seem to be making sort of the racial aspect of this so key to what they're saying, and he launched into a vigorous, dare I say, aggressive defense and reiteration of the Zimmerman side of this story, again saying that they believe it's all about people who are race baiting George Zimmerman, and again laying out this narrative, again in hearsay from the lawyer, that they are saying happened that night. So they really have, in a way, tried the case in public.
There's no doubt about that. Jamie, what effect does all this public discussion have on the potential for a fair and reasonable trial?
Well, you know, Martin, because we've had so many conversations about this issue in previous cases, that I'm loath to try these cases in the press. But I'm stunned that the Zimmerman side would want to do this, because no one benefits more from silence in this case than Zimmerman's side. The whole problem with stand your ground for prosecutors is that it shifts the entire burden of proof in self-defense cases on prosecutors. You know, normally self-defense, the burden is on the defendant. It's a hard thing for prosecutors anyway, but the burden's on the defendant traditionally to prove I was afraid and I had to defend myself.
And you mean by that in situations where someone goes onto someone else's property?
Right, but stand your ground means now the prosecutor has to show that Zimmerman was was the person who was afraid. The whole burden has shifted. So now Zimmerman's out there for reasons that I cannot fully fathom. Well, I guess I can fully fathom, trying to shift the burden here onto the poor victim. And we know that the victim, whatever you think about this case, the victim was unarmed. There's no doubt about that. The victim was a child, a minor, and the victim is not here to tell us what happened in this case. And the lawyers participated to some extent, but have now stepped out of it. Zimmerman's got a website going. He's in touch with Fox News, of all outlets. And so the whole thing is rather stunning to me. This is a case in which it seems to me silence would benefit Zimmerman, not all of this chatter out there online, and everything he seems to be doing and now disappearing certainly is not going to behoove his defense once these charges are filed. And I submit to you, charges will be filed. Whether they satisfy the supporters of Trayvon Martin, that remains to be seen. And first degree, we know, is off the table. But I do not think that this prosecutor will let this case go.
Jamie Floyd, Karen Finney, and Joanne Reed, thank you so much. Do stay with us.
I want us to be very clear. This is not anti-anybody. There are whites, blacks, Latinos, Asians that have marched with us, that stand with us. We are not running a hate campaign. This is a love campaign.